The sun was bright over San Francisco. It was a beautiful Tuesday in Golden Eagle Park. Children were laughing on the swings. Families were having picnics on green blankets. A gentle breeze blew through the tall eucalyptus trees, carrying the sweet smell of grass and flowers. Everything felt normal and peaceful. People were enjoying the simple pleasures of a lovely afternoon, completely unaware that their day, and perhaps their world, was about to change in a way they could never have imagined. It was a day that started like any other, but it would not end that way. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the park. It was not a cloud. It was big and round and dark. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They looked up at the sky, shielding their eyes from the sun. A strange humming sound filled the air, growing louder and louder. It was a deep, vibrating noise that seemed to make the ground tremble slightly. The birds stopped singing, and the happy sounds of the park were replaced by a collective gasp of surprise and a little bit of fear. Something was happening, something strange and new. There, hovering above the largest meadow, was a flying saucer. It was not like anything from a movie. It was made of a smooth silver metal that shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds around it. It had no wings, no propellers, and no windows that anyone could see. The ship was perfectly silent now, floating gracefully just a few feet above the grass. It slowly descended, landing so softly that it barely disturbed the daisies growing in the field. The air around it seemed to crackle with a strange energy. The people in the park stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. A young boy dropped his red ball, which rolled away unnoticed. A woman lowered her phone, forgetting about the picture she was about to take. Was this real? Was it some kind of elaborate prank or a movie being filmed? But there were no cameras, no directors shouting orders. There was only the silent, mysterious ship sitting in the middle of their park. A mix of fear and an incredible sense of wonder washed over the crowd as they waited to see what would happen next. A soft hiss broke the silence. A ramp slowly lowered from the side of the silver spaceship. It touched the ground with a quiet thud. Everyone held their breath, their hearts pounding in their chests. Who or what was going to come out? Were they friendly? Were they dangerous? The opening was dark at first, a black rectangle against the bright silver of the ship. Then 2 figures appeared at the top of the ramp. They looked surprisingly human. They were not little green men or strange monsters, but a man and a woman, standing tall and calm. The pair walked down the ramp together. They wore simple one-piece suits that looked like they were made of the same silvery material as the ship. The woman had long, dark hair braided down her back, and the man had short, blonde hair. They looked around at the crowd of stunned faces, their expressions serious but not unkind. They moved with a grace and confidence that was captivating. They did not seem afraid. Instead, they seemed to be on a mission, focused and determined, as they scanned the faces of the people who had gathered around. The man stepped forward and looked at a young college student who was standing nearby, holding his backpack. His voice was clear and steady, without any strange accent. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Can you please tell us what year this is?" The student stared back, completely speechless for a moment. He blinked, thinking it must be a trick question. He finally managed to find his voice, though it came out as a shaky whisper. It's 2025, he answered. June 10th, 2025. The man and woman exchanged a look. It was a look of relief, but also of great urgency. The woman then spoke, her voice as clear as the man's. "We have made it in time," she said, more to her companion than to the crowd. She then turned her gaze back to the people of the park. "We are from the future," she explained calmly. "We have traveled back in time from the year 2345. We are here because we need your help. We have come to deliver a very important message to your time." A murmur went through the crowd. The year 2345. It seemed impossible, a story from a science fiction book. Yet the sleek ship and the calm visitors made it feel real. The student who had answered them asked the question on everyone's mind. The future? What kind of message? The man from the future looked at him, his eyes filled with a deep sadness that seemed out of place on such a sunny day. "We have come to stop a war," he said, his voice low and serious. "A terrible nuclear war that will begin very, very soon." The words hung in the air, sending a chill through everyone who heard them. Nuclear war. The idea was terrifying, a nightmare from a history book that was not supposed to happen again. The peaceful afternoon in the park was shattered by the weight of their warning. The woman continued, her tone pleading. "In our time, we live with the consequences of that war every day. The Earth is still healing. We came back to prevent it from ever happening. You must convince your leaders to choose peace. You must stop the chain of events before it is too late." Before anyone could ask another question, a new sound cut through the air. It was the wail of sirens, growing closer and closer. In the distance, green army trucks and police cars could be seen racing toward the park entrance. Someone must have called them. The arrival of the authorities changed everything. The man and woman from the future looked at each other with alarm. Their window of time was closing. "They will not understand," the man said quickly. "They will try to stop us. We cannot be captured." With incredible speed, the two visitors turned and ran back up the ramp into their silver ship. The ramp retracted instantly, sealing the doorway with a faint hiss. The humming sound returned, louder this time. The spaceship lifted off the ground, causing the grass to swirl in a powerful vortex of wind. It rose straight up into the sky, hovering for a second over the park. Then, with a flash of brilliant light, it shot forward and vanished, leaving behind only the sound of the approaching sirens and a stunned silence. The army arrived just moments after the ship disappeared. Soldiers in camouflage uniforms swarmed the meadow, securing the area and questioning everyone. But what could anyone say? They had seen a spaceship. They had heard a warning. It sounded crazy. The officials seemed skeptical, treating it like a mass delusion or an elaborate hoax. There was no physical evidence left behind, no burn marks on the grass, no strange materials, nothing. The only proof was the shared memory of the people who had been in the park that day. As the sun began to set, the people were allowed to leave. They walked away from the park feeling dazed and confused. The world looked the same, but for them, it had changed forever. They now carried a heavy secret, a terrifying warning that no one else would believe. They had looked into the eyes of people from the future and had been told that their world was on the brink of disaster. How could they go back to their normal lives, knowing what they knew? The beautiful day had turned into a burden. The warning echoed in their minds. A nuclear war starting soon. Was it a specific event? A political crisis that was already unfolding on the news? Every headline now seemed like a potential trigger. Every angry speech from a world leader felt like a step toward the terrible future the visitors had described. The people from the park felt a strange and heavy responsibility. They were just ordinary citizens, students, parents, artists, and office workers. How could they possibly stop a war? The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. Yet, alongside the fear was a tiny spark of hope. The visitors had said, "We have made it in time." This meant that the terrible future was not set in stone. It could be changed. The warning was not a prophecy of doom, but a chance to choose a different path. The people who stood in Golden Eagle Park that day were no longer just spectators. They were witnesses, keepers of a vital secret. Their shared memory was now a quiet promise to watch, to listen, and to speak for peace whenever they could, hoping to prevent a future that must never be allowed to happen.